questions. I will answer them after the presentation. I have a slideshow ready for you today. I'm just making sure that people have time to jump in to the chat, and also I put up a I'm going to put up a poll that you can respond to or not respond to. It's up to you, but it's helpful. It gives me an idea of what I'm building for. How's it going, Fred? How's it going, Fred Hubber? Welcome. I've made some adjustments to this. I ran this on Lighthall. I have significantly upgraded it in terms of its quality, so that's why there's a slideshow. You'll find that the sound might be a little bit odd because I am in an odd position and there is a mat, and that means obviously I will be explaining stuff, I will answer questions, I will demonstrate. I am unable to do the participation aspect, which I was able to do in Lighthall at this time, but it will come. And my brother is currently testing my 6K camera, so when that's ready to go, we'll be able to use that instead of the webcam that I currently have, or the computer once the computer comes. So grab some food, some drink, get comfortable, grab your notebook if you feel you're going to need that. This takes about 40 minutes, I would say, roughly, to get it all done. And then it will certainly be open up to Q&A, and then I will ask for some feedback on terms of what part of it would you like me to sort of demonstrate. I'm not going to demonstrate everything because I'm one person, and it's much easier for me to demonstrate the monster side of things rather than the player side of things. Just bear that in mind. Okay, so I've done enough quacking. Let's actually get you ready to go. So that seems to be right. And hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, because usually I do talk about Dungeons and Dragons. It's quite common. On this channel, I usually do a lot of live streaming, and I have decided to build some classes. This is a continuation of the weekly Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeon Master tutorial. This is Lesson Plan 7, or Lesson 7. This is Wave Echo Cave Part 2. I've already run Part 1. And you will find that there is going to be a lesson plan 8, which will cover a different section of the adventure. Now, ultimately with this adventure, it's really up to you what you do with it, but I have got an overview for what I'm going to be covering today. The first thing, the overview, I'm going to do the Northern Barracks, the Smelter Cavern. I'm going to cover the Starry Cavern, the Wizard's Quarters, the Forge of Spells, the Booming Cavern, the old streambed, the Collapsed Cavern, God, there's a lot of caverns here, the Temple of Dumathoin and Nesna, obviously, and then the Priest's Quarters, and then Nundro, we need to talk about him. I will be giving you some miscellaneous recommendations. Yes, I will explain how to continue on, okay? We will have that covered. Now, with all of my things that I do here on this channel, I have objectives. The objective of this today is to help you navigate Wave Echo Cave as a Dungeon Master, allowing your players to do the same. Describing the cave will come up a little bit. Managing the wandering monsters. I have kind of already covered the wandering monsters, but we can discuss it again. It's not a huge focus. I've kind of done what I need to do with that. The important monsters to roleplay. There are quite a few in this section that we're covering today. Exploring Wave Echo Cave, I will explain that, and then the Dungeon Master running the monster encounters. And when I say encounters, I don't mean just combat encounters. They could be anything. There will be a demonstration aspect to that. I can't demonstrate absolutely everything, but I will certainly try to cover as much as I possibly can. There's also the intention in the future, which is what I used to do with this class, is a practical playthrough for Dungeon Masters. I can't do that currently, but in the future, when it is possible to do so, we will. Now, you'll notice that on D&D Beyond, the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the adventure itself is now available for free, and there is a link provided. You'll find that link in the slide here. So go to D&D Beyond, you can download it, you get the entire adventure, you get all of the stat blocks for the adventure, you get all the artwork, and you get the high resolution maps for the Dungeon Master and the players, so you don't have to go and buy a whole lot of expensive packets on virtual tabletops if you're using a virtual tabletop, or if you want to have the high resolution maps, to take them to a print shop and have them printed out. So there's a lot there. It's a very good thing that they've done. Wizards of the Coast has done some really shite things, and this is one of the better things I've ever seen them do. Now, the cave itself it's essentially a modern mega dungeon, because it has 20 locations. That's quite large for a modern dungeon, okay? And when I say dungeon, I'm just referring to cave complex. And I covered half of that in the part 1 section, and then part 2 will cover the rest of it, which is generally the sort of the right to top section of the map. Now, I'm going to refer to each section by its number and what it's called, and then I'm going to give you a rundown of the different things that I would suggest you do, or give you some advice, try to fill in the gaps. The intention with what I'm trying to do here today is to try not to go over stuff that is already in the adventure. With this particular lesson, I found that I do wind up going over a lot of the adventure material already, but I also include things you will be surprised by. So don't feel that it's going to be a waste of your time. I think you will find it is far from that. Okay, so we're dealing with number 11, which is the Northern Barracks. The Northern Barracks, this is the best way for the players' characters to sort of, well, I wouldn't say it's the best way. I would say the best way for the players' characters to open the barricaded eastern door is to use a crowbar, or get somebody to help them from the party. One of the party members could assist them. That would give them advantage on the strength check. That's probably the easiest way to get the barricaded eastern door open. I recommend not bothering with that DC 10 wisdom or perception check to listen at the door, to hear gruff voices from the bugbears. As long as they state that they listen at the door, I think that's perfectly adequate. A DC 10, to make it clear, is an easy check. Like it's an easy check. Like you can hear somebody through the door in my office without having to roll dice. Like that's how easy it will be. Provided that the 5 bugbears don't surprise the party, the player characters should be fine engaging in a fight with these monsters. I know it looks like 5 bugbears is a lot. They will be perfectly fine, provided that you're following the directions of the adventure and that they are now level 4. If you have a group of 4 to 5 players and they're level 4, they will generally be perfectly fine. Now, there's always going to be some variation if you're dealing with player skill, but by now they should have developed enough skill to be able to deal with this location. You'll know your group better than I. Now, if you want to intimidate, persuade, or bribe the bugbears, it's not very plausible, because they are loyal to Nesna, the Black Spider, and they also relish violence, so intimidating them is probably just going to rile them up. So I wouldn't go that way. I'd avoid something like that. That was not a good thing to do with a bugbear. But if you wanted to trick the bugbears into leaving the barracks, or convince them that the player characters are members of the Red Brands sent by Glass Staff, it might be possible to trick the bugbears. I think that's plausible. Considering that there were bugbears in the Red Brand hideout, and they may have, I don't think they would necessarily have provided a lot of the information on where Wave Echo Cave and the mine was to Glassstaff, but it's your story. You can do what you like with it. So I would say it is possible to bribe your way in and trick them if you want to. Well, not bribe, but trick your way in, not so much bribe. So Area 12, this area is basically an extension of all of the different things that are going on in this entire place. It is probably one of the more dangerous locations. I wouldn't say the most dangerous location, but one of the more dangerous locations, the Smelter Cavern. So role-playing that Flaming Skull, you'll find information on page 46 of the adventure, but I would say that the monster manual on page 134 will give you better advice. It's just far better. Now, I haven't actually made a video on how to role-play the Flaming Skull for this adventure, but I would suggest just play that Flaming Skull as a mad, laughing, Joker-like character. If you've ever seen what the Joker is in the comic books or the movies, then just play the Flaming Skull a little bit like that. The most effective way to employ your Flaming Skull offensively for attack is to open up with a fireball first. It is the most dangerous tool that you have at your disposal, and certainly I would say the Flaming Skull is probably the most dangerous threat in the entire place on its own. Without anything else, it's probably more dangerous than anything else. Open up with a fireball, then follow up with a rolling flaming sphere, which you can then have for a few rounds. Roll that into some of the player characters, and then follow up while you're rolling your flaming sphere around with firing your fire ray and the additional rounds after that, provided that the Flaming Skull is actually still alive. A Flaming Skull should be moving behind cover, so use the Blast Furnace and the Billows as cover, and also don't forget to use the Shield spell for defense. Otherwise, your Flaming Skull will go down very quickly. Flaming Skulls do reconstitute themselves, so unless the player characters realize that, it could wind up back in this location. The Flaming Skull is actually intelligent, so it could be tricked. Now, I'm going to suggest that you allow, say, a spell-casting dwarf or a gnome, if they have descent in gnomish or dwarven, and they cast spells, you could potentially get that character to negotiate with and trick them, like trick that Flaming Skull, absolutely. It's unlikely to be effective by trying to intimidate, persuade, or bribe the Flaming Skull, just because of its nature and its ancient instructions. It's been given very specific instructions on how it's supposed to approach any kind of intruder. So if you don't have that, if you're trying to do intimidation and you're trying to persuade them or trying to bribe a Flaming Skull, it's probably not going to work. But you could trick them into thinking that you are one of the player characters, the spellcaster, or one of the spellcasters that actually gave it instructions and so forth, because it may not remember exactly who it was. There may have been multiple dwarves and gnomes involved. There are 8 zombies. Zombies can't be reasoned with, so the best way to deal with them is to use turn undead abilities or destroy them with some sort of turn ability and turn undead ability. And then, of course, you have the Paladin Smites. They do radiant damage. And you also have Sacred Flame. The Sacred Flame cantrip's actually one of the more efficient tools in this case. I know people like to call it Sacred Miss, but in this case, this is the correct tool for the job. This is meant to be an extremely deadly combat encounter if the player characters decide to fight. Like if you decide to engage in a fight here, it is supposed to be a very deadly encounter. The area can be avoided, and you can flee this area. You don't have to worry about being chased down. Like that's not the intention of this part of the adventure. So you can flee. You might like to also include a few silver or gold or even platinum ingots. I would say up to about 100 gold pieces worth. They are basically little rocks that are made out of silver or gold or platinum, and they could be found in the mining carts. There is mention of there being mining carts and there being ore in there. I wouldn't require a perception check at all, as long as the player characters are saying, I searched the carts, and they search the carts for 10 to 30 minutes. They will find what they're looking for, which is the 100 gold pieces worth of little rocks made out of silver, gold, and platinum. Next we have Area 13. Area 13 is the Starry Cavern. Now the Starry Cavern doesn't look that complicated. There's not an awful lot going on here. So what I did is I decided I would add in something you might be able to use, because right now the adventure covers pretty much everything that you need to know. And it's quite a large section that really doesn't do very much. So what I'm going to suggest to you is allow the player characters to break off sections of the glittering minerals. And now we'll find out that they are in fact some sort of crystal. Those crystals could be used as a spellcasting focus, so you would allow them to do that if they want to. Or, more importantly, is they could be used to magnify anything that they try to see through, so that the crystals act like a binocular lens. So that all they need is a rolled up piece of paper, or a rolled up hardened piece of leather, or a tube, or even a map case, and taking out the one end of the map case so they can see all the way through it. and putting the crystal or a crystal inside there would actually act as a magnifying glass of some kind. So you now essentially have your own telescope for seeing things at a distance. I think that's the only way I could think of making this area a little bit more interesting rather than the basic thing the adventure provides currently. Area 14, this is the Wizard's Quarters. Just bear with me, I need some water. Okay, the Wizard's Quarters. You'd think there'd be a lot going on here. Well, it kind of is. Role-playing Mormisk the Wraith, you'll find the information for that in the adventure on page 47. There is also a video on my channel that covers Mormisk the Wraith, if you wanted instructions and advice on how to do so. If you want the quick and fast and dirty way of doing it, I would say just play Mormisk the Wraith as a heartless, greedy banker, because essentially he kind of is. Mormisk can be bribed, he can be persuaded, or potentially deceived by the player characters with the right approach. Not any approach, but the right approach. And then the right approach will be the approach that you think is going to work. Suggested in the adventure is basically that anything that is magic related is probably a good way of bribing Mormisk. So if you've got magic knowledge or magic power that you can offer, a scroll, a magic item, those all could be used as a way of bribing Mormisk. Not so much wealth, but certainly magical power and knowledge and information. Intimidating Mormisk is disastrous, and it will probably result in the Wraith attacking. In fact, I would say that's probably exactly what's going to happen. It doesn't make sense that a Wraith would not do so, because really you can't get rid of that Wraith that easily, and it can move out of harm's way when it needs to anyway. I recommend not bothering with the DC 10 Charisma Persuasion check when trying to bribe Mormisk. Instead, all the player characters really need to do is offer a suitable gift. If they have a gift that is suitable, that is of magic nature, then that will be more than adequate. They do not need to worry about the vagaries of a dice roll. And a DC 10, again, is an easy roll, so why bother? The Mormisk Wraith stat block that you find in the adventure is actually different to the Wraith stat block in the Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And what that basically means is that Mormisk's ability to move is not the same as the Wraith. It's far better. If you have a very close look at how that Mormisk Wraith works, that means moving through doors and walls is your go-to. You really want to do that as a way of having Mormisk leave or escape, and also hinder the party later if you feel inclined. There are a number of magical tombs that are supposedly remaining on the shelves, but the adventure doesn't actually give you any idea of what they might be. And so what I have done is I've selected 5 that are well known that you can include and put into your adventure so that you don't have to try to make them up yourself. So here I'm going to list them off right now. The first one is the Tome of Dogmatic Method. The second one, the Book of Change. The third one, 7 Fingers. The fourth one, Tomb of Garden Flowers. And the last one, the Tomb of the Full. Now each one has a different effect. There is a website, if you do a search for these, you will find they have minor mechanical benefits, but it's the story element to them that I think you will find more interesting, and I think your players will find far more interesting. You can, if you like, remove the mechanical benefits. Some of the mechanical benefits aren't really benefits. They are more, some of these books are kind of cursed. But I thought they were a good addition that you could include. And it kind of makes sense that a Wizard's Quarters might have something like this, and also that there would be books that Mormisk would have kept over time. There's also supposed to be a mysterious map in this location, and it is intended to be used by the Dungeon Master to create or repurpose from a short pre-made adventure and turn into the next main adventure, basically. So that's the purpose of that mysterious map. So if you're wondering what to do with that, that's what it's supposed to do. And I think the adventure kind of suggests that anyway. So consider that map is what you do after the Lost Mine of Phandelver if you want to continue the campaign. Area 15, which is the Forge of Spells, a location with a lot of power, and another very interesting NPC. So role-playing that deranged spectator is listed on page 48. It does a reasonable good job. I don't think it's a bad job in terms of what they've said, but the monster manual on page 30 gives you even better advice on how to do so. And if you want the quick fix, like how do I role-play the spectator without having to read a lot of stuff, then I would just say play the spectator like a delusional, forgetful Jack Nicholson. If you know who Jack Nicholson, the actor, is, and you can kind of mimic some of the things that he used to do, then I would suggest going with delusional, forgetful, a mixture of The Shining and a mixture of, well, heck, you could even utilize any. I mean, he played the same character all the time, didn't he? Really, Jack always played the same character. The spectator wants to talk to anyone who doesn't interfere with the spectator's guarding duty, because it's very lonely. That spectator's been there a long time. It's kind of sick of doing what it's doing. So it can be persuaded and it can be deceived to a point. Yeah? Intimidating a spectator will just result in it giving a warning, probably first, followed by attacking the party if the party attacks. So I don't think that intimidation is the best option in this case. The most effective way to employ your spectator is to have it flying near the 20-foot high ceiling, which will mean it will be pretty much out of reach. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, no, I can get to it, but no, you really can't. You're roughly about 5 foot tall, and even with a weapon in your hand, your reach is 5 foot, so that's 10 feet, and the spectator is going to be well out of your reach. But then again, you can play it however you like, but having it flying near the ceiling is the best way. Now, targeting spellcasters is what I would do. So have the spectator target spellcasters or ranged attackers with the eye rays rather than attacking the melee characters, because the melee characters aren't really a big threat because it's going to be out of reach. The best strategy for dealing or defeating the spectator is to use ranged attacks and avoid targeting it with any kind of magic spells, as they can be reflected back on the spellcaster. Now, I know a lot of Dungeon Masters tend to forget this, that the spectator does have this feature. Please don't forget that if you cast a spell at the spectator, it's going to get reflected. Okay? The player characters will most likely try, or at least ask, to repair the magical brazier of green flame. Please don't get suckered or bullied into doing this, because you will regret it. Because all it's going to wind up happening is they will bring in vast quantities of non-magical weapons and pass them through the brazier, so that they are constantly or can create an infinite number of permanent magic items. That is the last thing you need in your game. I've done that before. I advise you not to do so. Right now, the magical effect that it imbues on anything is temporary in nature, and they can't remove the brazier from this location, so there are sort of some limitations on what this thing can do. And those limitations are there for a reason. The designers knew very well that the brazier would be utilized to create temporary magic items. They were not intending for it to be used to be turned into permanent magic items and then flood the market with them. Okay, Area 16, which is the Booming Cavern. Not a huge amount to say about the Booming Cavern, I would say, but what I do have to say is that the booming waves sound that originates from this cavern will likely affect a creature's ability to hear voices and movement right throughout the whole cave complex. So that means you probably can't hear anything in this cavern clearly. It's going to get lost by the constant echoing of the booming waves. So that changes how you can maneuver and explore this location. It makes sense that the sound from the crashing waves will impact all perception checks, including passive perception, negatively for any kind of creature trying to hear something. So that whether you're trying to hear or you overhearing talking or fighting or moving in the caverns, all of that I would suggest applying disadvantage or automatic failure. I think actually automatic failure is probably a better idea. The dead-end passageway coming off this cavern to the south has a very thin wall section. This section of wall can be broken down with a pick or a large hammer to access Area 12 if you wanted to. You're probably wondering why it hasn't been finished off. There might have been a reason. They just haven't finished doing anything with it. It's up to you how you want to describe it, but you could break through that section and link it up with with Area 12. Right. Number 17. This is the old streambed. There's not an awful lot to say about the old streambed. I think ultimately it's just another route. So this is one of two routes that you can use as a player character to avoid the Smelter Cavern with the zombies and the flame skull, okay? Because that's a particularly very dangerous location to enter. And so if you wind up having to retreat, or your player characters are trying to retreat and they don't want to go back in there, there are alternative routes they can take. The adventure covers this pretty well. I don't think that there's very much more that I need to say other than they're probably smart to use that route if they want to. Now, Area 18, which is the Collapsed Cavern. The Collapsed Cavern, much like many of the locations, this is set up with some guards, essentially. And they do have a purpose. The adventure does spell that out. The cavern acts actually as a major access point for the party as they explore. Like, it gives you lots of different routes. So ensure that the players are aware of all the different passageways and what directions they're going on, so they can make an informed decision on which passageway to take from this location, because it will significantly change the way the adventure plays out. Depending on which route they take, they can certainly wind up avoiding a lot of the other cave locations this time round. Although I imagine most players, they want to clean out the whole thing anyway, but yeah, this is an opportunity to make a few different choices, because there are at least 4 different routes, I believe, from here. Now, role-playing Velark, the doppelganger, is on page 49 of the adventure. There's also a video on my YouTube channel that talks about role-playing the doppelgangers and how to use them. If you want the short and quick, easy way to do this, I would just suggest play the doppelganger as a drow, an undercover spy. Basically, what would an undercover spy do? Like, that's what I would suggest. Just play it out as being a drow. If it's going to, even if it stays in this location, you may want to move it to a different location. The doppelganger and the bugbears in this area could be persuaded or deceived by player characters wearing, say, red brand outfits, depending on the method that they use. Like, you know, if they use the right method and approach, then I would allow them to do some persuading or deceiving with both the bugbears and the doppelganger. But bribing, intimidating the bugbears, it's not going to work, as they will be probably the most loyal individuals or creatures, and they also, as I said, they relish violence. But the doppelganger could be scared off and flee to Nesna the Black Spider if they take out the bugbears first. There's no way that doppelganger is going to hang out or even put itself at great threat or great risk. It would definitely allow the bugbears to do most of the work. So if the bugbears go down, doppelganger is going to take off. Area 19, which is the Temple of Dumathoin. I hate that name. I might have botched it up a little bit. This is basically your main location. This is where you find the big bad. Role-playing Nesna the Black Spider is on page 49 to 50 of the adventure. There's also a video on my channel that I already cover this character pretty well. But if you want the dirty way and easy way of playing this character out, and you want it in just a couple of words, I would play Nesna the Black Spider like a James Bond villain. Like, think of a James Bond villain that you like and you remember, and play out Nesna that way. If the doppelganger has retreated to this area instead of, it manages to escape from, where the bugbears were, what you could do is, instead of assuming the disguise of Nundro Rockseeker, don't do that. You could have the doppelganger disguise itself as Nesna the Black Spider, and this will confuse your players. It will also give the Black Spider a better chance of living past round 1, particularly if the player characters roll very high when they get here and they engage in a fight very early on and there's no conversation taking place, which is very likely to happen, because if they know it's Nesna, they're probably not going to muck around. They're probably going to try to take him out. So if you have to deal with 2 Nesnas who look identical, and you're also dealing with all the spiders in this location, that's pretty tough. Yep, it makes that whole climactic battle significantly more interesting. Rather than Nesna casting the invisibility spell first, which the adventure suggests, can I suggest you cast the darkness spell? Okay, Drow can cast darkness. Now, why would we do this? It's going to hinder the player characters much more than making Nesna the Black Spider invisible. It will also hinder Nesna the Black Spider and the doppelganger in this area for sure. But they're not going to do most of the fighting. What you're trying to do is you're trying to let the spiders do the work, okay? Because the spiders can deal with being in darkness because of one of their features. Now, this is another thing I'm going to suggest. Including spider webs on the floor, on the walls, and the ceiling will make it much easier for the giant spiders, the 4 giant spiders in this location, to track the movements of the players with their web sense. Particularly since it's magical darkness, and dark vision does not work in magical darkness. But they do have that web sense, and so as long as they are moving around and doing stuff in that magical darkness, the spiders will know where they are, okay? So that they can use their web ability on the player characters and then attack them unseen, which means they get advantage. So web them up first and then attack them with their bite while they're unseen in this magical darkness. Now that means that Nesna the Black Spider needs to make sure that he doesn't move around too much. Doppelganger needs to make sure they don't move around too much. Otherwise, a giant spider might wind up webbing them up and attacking them. But those characters should be aware that that's what they need to do. I highly recommend this approach. You'll find it far more interesting. It'll make it much more difficult. If you don't do this, you'll find the player characters at level 4 will kill everything very fast. Now, Nesna can then question the player characters in the middle of a fight using the cover of this magical darkness, can cast spells if Nesna wants to. So you cast a spell, then you move, and then use the heavy obscurity as cover. Like, unless the player characters, you don't even have to worry about taking the hide action. Unless the player characters are deliberately making a perception check, which would use up their action, they're really not going to know where Nesna is. Again, if Nesna moves, then there's potential for the spiders to wind up webbing up Nesna. But you can carry out a conversation with the player characters to a certain degree, or you can wait until the characters have been webbed up and bitten by the spiders and they're all unconscious, and then have a discussion with player characters when they are trounced up. You're basically having a total party capture rather than a total party kill. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to have any kind of discussion with Nesna and the player characters. Now, there is mention of 2 bugbears in this location, in the box text for this location, as well as the giant spiders. But you'll notice that there is nothing in bold, okay? So you can add 2 more bugbears to the fight, which would certainly make it more difficult. There's nothing in bold in that section that suggests that there are 2 bugbears. Now, this might be just an error that has, it crept into the printing of the adventure. Hopefully, newer versions have removed that. But this will make the entire encounter not just challenging, but extremely deadly. It will be a very difficult fight. So I just wanted to point out that you might have noticed a little problem there with the mention in the text of 2 bugbears, but nothing in bold. I would recommend not bothering with the strength check of DC 10 to pry loose the jewels. Like, if they want to pry loose those jewels, let them go for it. You know, a DC 10 is an easy check. It's not worth your while. Okay, Area 20, which is the priest's quarters. Just bear with me. I need to have another drink of water. All right. So the priest quarters, Area 20. It should be possible to rescue Nundro Rockseeker from the quarters without alerting anyone, okay? Provided the party say they are being stealthy. Now, a stealth check of DC 15 is what I've worked out would be appropriate in this situation based on the passive perception of the creatures in this location. And so it's about timing, and then have them make a check if you feel it's appropriate. You may want to just, with regard to a rogue, just allow them to automatically pass this. Use a group check, I would suggest. I know some people don't like using a group check, but the concept behind a group check is that if half the party succeed, then everybody succeeds, because those who stuffed it up, their attempts are improved by those who did really well. It certainly reduces the chance of being discovered by spiders or bugbears or doppelgangers and Nesna. Okay, so I have some miscellaneous recommendations for this adventure, as I always do for each section. So first off, dealing with the aftermath of defeating Nesna and rescuing Nundro Rockseeker, the adventure covers this pretty well, so I don't really need to go into it in too much detail. But if you want to add some complexity and really make things a bit more interesting and a bit more complicated, I do have some suggestions. I want you to consider having Loth, the demon queen of spiders, turn the dead or alive Nesna corpse or body, or Nesna who's alive, whether he's dead or alive, it doesn't matter, into a Drider for failing to succeed in his attempt in taking control of Wave Echo Cave. And then you can have Nesna the Drider return later in your campaign if you want to. Will require you to do some home brewing, of course, but it has been mentioned before that it would be nice if Nesna the Black Spider actually became a Drider. So what we're really doing is we're doing a Darth Maul. You know, Nesna the Black Spider, just like Darth Maul, suffers a great defeat. And then after the great defeat, is rebuilt again as something more dangerous than it was than before. And a Drider is pretty nasty. You can also make the Ruins of Thunder Tree with Venom Fang the next adventure you run after the Lost Mine of Phandelver, and make it a major threat. Now, how do you do that? Include the Cult of the Dragon. So have the Cult of the Dragon and the Green Dragon, the young green dragon, attack Phandalin. That's your cue for kicking things off. For those of you who are wondering, what do I do after? I would suggest that's probably the best way, okay? Right, the treasure in Wave Echo Cave is perfectly adequate. You really don't have to add anything, okay, because it's actually done a pretty good job. But if you did want to add anything, I would suggest consumable potions and scrolls. They won't significantly undermine your game if it continues from here on, and you can probably put in quite a few and you won't have to worry about it, because they're single-use things. Like, the player characters can use them once. You do not need to include a lot of magic items because of the brazier. Even though it makes temporary magic items, essentially, it doesn't matter. Now, awarding experience points for killing monsters. The adventure actually goes into a lot of detail on when and how to award experience points. So you award experience points when monsters are killed. They can be defeated. That means they don't have to be killed, just defeated. They can be driven off. They could surrender. They can be bribed. Yep, they can flee. Those sorts of things. So it covers the whole gambit when you're awarding experience points. At this point, the characters should be gaining another level. They should have been level 4 here, and they will advance to level 5. Okay, so they gain a milestone for completing 2 things. 1, they defeat Nesna the Black Spider and reclaim the mine. Yep. That's what we're aiming for. If they manage to rescue Nundro Rockseeker, that's great. But it's not instrumental for gaining that milestone or completing this adventure. It's Nesna and taking control of the mine that's important. Now, I'm hoping that this covered everything that you need for running the adventure. For those of you who are in the process of either doing it or planning to do so in the future. My intention behind this is to make this a weekly event so that you can ask questions and get some feedback, and I can do some demonstration. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone, I just need water. So that did take me about 40 minutes. Okay, good. Well, maybe just a little bit under. But yeah, that worked out. Okay, let me go to the chat. Let's work our way through the chat. For those of you who need some feedback, this is the time to start typing in questions. I also want to check the poll. I see we're a bit light today on people. Maybe the fact that I haven't actually been doing these for a while has probably been part of the problem. Maybe it's a bad time of the day for some people. I know it's summer in North America and doing other things. So Dino Mansa, yeah, I mean book as in tome, T-O-M-E, not tomb. So that's not T-O-M-B, it's T-O-M-E. So it's a book. That's what I was referring to with the books on the shelf, okay? Is this the first time you have Dungeon Mastered for a roleplay game? And we've got 35% have said yes out of 23 votes, and no is 48%, okay? Returning DMing from long break, 17%. Okay, this is good to know. I'm going to leave that open because that will help me. This is where I would like people to either share their experience of being a Dungeon Master and running this adventure, or ask questions. Like, this is the purpose of this. I have a good 20 minutes that I can offer up for answering any kind of question you have. The easiest way is usually hashtag question, but since there's so few people here, just fire away. What I will say is that because this is a weekly class, you will find that the Dungeon Master handout notes for this particular section will go up on Patreon. If you're wanting to get access to the actual PDF that I've put together, it will be completed and up in a few days, and that will be up on Patreon. You can pay $1 a month or a little bit more, whatever you want really, and you get access to everything that is provided there. Patreon has all of the video tutorials already up there. They just don't look like this. They are the older ones I ran on Lighthall, cut down, okay? And it includes all of the previous lessons that I've run. So lesson 1 through to 6 is already up there that you can download and use if you're a patron. Now, obviously, the best way to ensure that these classes continue is for people to turn out and be part of this. I would suggest Patreon because you get more, but also super chats and super stickers is also another really good way of doing that as well. Okay. All right, so let's have a look at what we've got here. Time for bacon. Sure, Fred, we could have bacon. Big clue. I gave my players advantage on persuasion checks when they wore red cloaks they found at the manor. So you could give advantage, or you could just say that however you persuade them, whatever you say to them is successful because, like, you've got the cloaks on and you look like a red brand. It's up to you. I am going to encourage you, whether you're a new Dungeon Master or an experienced Dungeon Master or you're coming back into it, is to take control of the table and take control of the adventure and make the changes and make some decisions. Like, you don't have like a YouTuber or people in the public leaning over you and telling you are doing things wrong, because it's none of their business. It's none of my business. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could do that. Thanks for sharing that, Big Clue. James, how's it going, James? Truth. Flaming Skull was the biggest challenge to my group of 3. Now, a group of 3 through this area would be tough. I think with regard to a Flaming Skull, I've found the Flaming Skull is more capable of causing trouble than anything else. Because it's so small, it's easy to put behind cover, and so therefore you wind up with more problems occurring. But it's the fact that it can cast Fireball, Even though it can cast it only once, it doesn't matter. Once is enough. Most 5e adventures, when you're running a combat, will last between 1 and 3 rounds. So that means that your monster has to do what they're going to do very quickly. You may only get one chance, and then it's all over. Okay? You may get a couple of rounds, and that's it. There's no guarantee that the Flaming Skull will be in the fight the longest period of time. It might well wind up being the thing that they target first. Yeah. It was tough. I had them do side quests before the cave, so there were 5 going into it. So yeah, so you made sure. Yeah, so three player characters level 5 would make it easier. Level 4 going into this with 3 player characters would be difficult, just because of the. And of course, if they don't know how to get rid of the Flaming Skull permanently, it comes back over a period of time, and that's not so cool. It's probably not going to come up immediately, but it might really annoy your players that they didn't figure out how to dispose of it the first time round. Anyway, I know, man, so what do you got here? I think I said hi. Role-playing Mormisk like a banker. Okay, so I have a very low opinion of bankers. I have a mortgage. Okay, all right. I'm not suggesting you play them like my mortgage broker or like the guy that I set up my mortgage with or anything like that. But when I say banker, I am being tongue-in-cheek. I'm suggesting you play them like a person who's playing the stock market in a suit, whose real only goal is to make an awful lot of money. So a banker, essentially. I have an extremely low opinion of wraiths. Yes, you should. A wraith is a wraith. This wraith has probably got more to it than other characters. So I would say that Mormisk the Wraith has got a lot more going for him than other wraiths, for sure. All right. Okay, so next. So as we are here and I am answering these questions, I will point out that over the next 4 days we will be having Dungeon Master preparation classes between an hour and a half and 2 hours, where I will explain how to do something and then we will do it. This week, Building Adventures is tomorrow. I think the next day is building NPCs. The next day is building monsters, and AJ Pickett has helped me with that. Thank you very much, AJ. And then the fourth one is going to be creating locations. So there's an awful lot of Dungeon Master prep. For those of you who have always keep saying that I'm really good for beginner Dungeon Masters, but not so great for experienced to intermediate, I'm making changes. Okay, so they are coming. Big Kid, how's it going? Awesome as always, Fred. Well, thank you. This is the BBEG, yes, for the main campaign. So yeah, you need to make, look, it's all right for the player characters to die in the final fight. Now, if 1 or 2 characters die, even if they all die, it's all right, because the end of the campaign and the end of the adventure should be tough. It should be hard. Like, otherwise you might as well just narrate it. It's up to you, but I mean, you know, I still think that making the end of an adventure very difficult is the way to go. James is what he's gone. That Big Kid, what do you got here? Since a lot of people use this as a jumping off campaign, yes. How do you think about the handling of income from this, or do you advise against that? No, I think you take the advice that has been provided in the adventure. Now, in the adventure, it gives you an indication. I suppose I didn't actually stipulate and state, did I, how to deal with the income coming off this thing. Did people ask me that question in the past, and I've just failed to come up with it? I think it was 10% of the 10% of your of the take on the mine. So whatever the mine makes in profit, you get 10% per month or whatever it is. Now, where is it? Is it under conclusions? Yeah. Here it is. For the adventurers, services to their family, they gladly award the party a 10% share of the mine's profits. So that they don't have to do anything with the mine, they just get 10%. So what does that actually equate to for the party every month in terms of a take? What I'm going to suggest to you is you have a look at the average take, that's the main treasure haul that you get at level 5, and you use that. Now I don't have that on me. I wonder if I can pull it up really quickly on here, can I? It's probably going to be way too difficult. So in the Dungeon Master Guide, actually, I'll just go get it. I might as well. Let me go get it. Okay, you asked a really tricky question, big kid. I'll go get the answer. Right, I should have known this was going to be asked. It's not like it's the first time that people have asked me this question anyway. So, okay, here we go. Looking up treasure and the treasure tables. Here we go. Right, here we go. So this is page of the Dungeon Master Guide. I'll just move that out of the way. On your Dungeon Master Guide on page 136, you'll see individual treasure packages, like how much you would normally get. Okay, and then you'll also see what it is treasure hoard for different levels of play. So you've got challenges 0 to 4. So basically what you're talking about is from level 1 to 4 basically, and then treasure hoard challenges 5 to 10. So just look at it in terms of this is the character level. It's the easiest way to see it. So what I would suggest is just have a look at the treasure hoard for 5 to 10 and select one of these things along here. The easiest way to do this, I think, ultimately, is just to look at the gold piece section, since you roll on here to determine what you're going to get. The easiest way, instead of breaking it down with this chart here, is just use the one along the top, okay? And it tells you how many platinum. So roll 6-sided dice, 3 of them. I'll move this out of the way. And I'll move this over here. And we'll do that right now. So our gold pieces, I rolled a 2, a 4, and a 3. And I'm going to multiply that by, ooh, do I have, so I only roll it 2 times, so that's 22. So that's 5, 9. Do it again. 10, 11, 15. Okay. So, it also have the average there. Like, there's an average. I would go straight for the average. Stop messing around, Fred. Let's just write down the averages and add it all up. So the gold GP is 2,100. Platinum is going to be 105. Okay? And then your silver, 7,000, which is essentially 700 gold pieces. And then your copper, well, I wouldn't bother with the copper. So that I would suggest that as your take for your party per month in terms of 10%. That seems like a lot of money, but per month that's not going to make a big deal. Like, if you're running your campaign quite quickly, it'll all disappear very quickly. The time will go and they'll need the money. You know what I mean? They need the money for getting themselves a stronghold, fixing up castles, repairing manors that are broken down, that sort of stuff, engaging in retraining, doing downtime stuff, like all of that comes into play. So that's what I would suggest, is you look at that one page. That's page 137 for the treasure hoard challenges 5 to 10. Okay. Hopefully I answered that question. Right, so one of the things I will have to do for the future is make sure I add in what do you do in terms of income on this. I hadn't done that in the past, unfortunately. Sorry for those of you who were expecting that answer. It should have been obvious to me. I just missed it. Anyway, what do you got here, big kid? I think Gundren makes your party partners. Yeah, they become partners, so you get a share of profits, which is a good thing. Yep. Right, so I'll close this up. I'll put that out of the way for a second, and I'll move this to over here. I think that's right, over here. Yep. Now normally I do some demonstration. She's a bit quiet today, so what I am assuming, I need people to let me know if they would like me to do some demonstration. Now, I am happy to demonstrate any of the areas I've discussed today. Like the areas that I've discussed today, out of area 11 through to 20, I am happy to cover those. Not completely, but I will roll initiative. I will show you how the monster works. I will explain what I would do in that situation. I'm happy to do all of that if you want. But this is your opportunity in the live chat to let me know if that's what you want. I usually look for 3 responses before I do that. Otherwise, I will just select something to do. So while I drink some water, and I know there's a little bit of a lag, and those of you who are on phones will have to be typing very little buttons and so forth. Okay. But there should be sufficient people in here who may need assistance with figuring out some of this stuff. So and I can play out a battle if you like with the Wraith Mormusk. I could play out a battle with the Spectator. We could do the main event, which is rolling up initiative and setting out for Nesna the Black Spider and his spiders, and we could stick some bugbears there as well if you really liked. We can do any of these locations. You just need to let me know which one you would prefer. Oh, we've got a bot. Let's deal with the bot real quickly before hide user. Okay, so I think I got it. Okay. Is it Dumathoin 365? Examples are always nice for learning. Okay, so what I require is, like, which one do you prefer? Is it area 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20? Like, which one would you prefer? So while you are figuring that out, I will now I have a Pathfinder combat pad here, so I'm going to write some stuff on here. So that's rogue, wizard, fighter, cleric, DM. Yes. So which one? I would say the Wraith. Okay. 13. Okay, we'll do 13. Now, 13, if you might notice, is virtually off my desk. So it's very difficult for me to place a whole lot of miniatures there without them just sliding off. Okay, so I will just pick a couple. We need a wizard, we need a cleric, we need a fighter, and we need a rogue. And I've got them. Okay, put them over there. Now, this map is not to scale. For those of you who are wondering how you would print it to scale, it's not possible without it being printed. It's 6 foot by 8 foot if it's printed to scale, which is why it's not printed to scale on my desk, because I wouldn't be able to do this. It would be impossible. Okay. My advice to you is don't worry about trying to print it to scale. I know some people have. This is big enough; it will fit on your dining room table. And you still get an idea of positioning. It's not like you're going to be able to set things up particularly accurately. I'm going to put them here out of the room because otherwise they're going to slide right off my desk. And we will put everybody sort of roughly in this area. Okay. So if there's a fight that breaks out, let's just assume that there is no surprise. Surprise is always bad in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, ultimately because usually somebody is going to suffer pretty badly from that. And if the players are surprised, it's usually bad for them. If the monster's surprised, it's usually bad for them. So what I will do is I'll grab this, and I'll put that over there in a second. I'll just organise this first. So let's roll up the initiatives, shall we? So our wizard's initiative. So we'll go initiative. Now you don't have to do all the rolling. Remember, as the dungeon master, all you have to do is worry about the monster. You're not worrying about everything, just the bits that are important to you. Okay, so don't freak out while I roll for every single thing under the sun. That's not what you're going to do. You're rolling just for the monsters. You get the players to roll for theirs. Okay. All right. Okay. Righto. I think I got that sorted. Okay. So let's do first one. We'll do the wizard. So a 20-sided dice. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I've put it in the middle. Kind of rolled. Not a very good roll, but okay. So the wizard has a modifier for initiative of 2, which is your dexterity modifier. 6. So 2 and 6 is 8. That's what we get. So our wizard gets a 8 for their initiative. And then we do the next one, which I believe, let's do the rogue has got a 3. So that's their modifier for the initiative. Roll a 20-sided dice. I rolled a 1. Very unfortunate. So they get a 4 in total. 3 plus 1 is 4. And that's the rogue. I'm not rolling very well. A bonus action and a reaction would be nice to see. Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, so let's do that. Fighter, their modifier is a -1 because they've got heavy armor. Their dexterity is not very good. I got an 8. So -1, 8 is 7. That's the fighter. I'll move this board over into a better position once I've done this. So I've just got to write it all up first. I can't reach all the way over. Whoops. The cleric has actually got a -1 as well. So I'll roll a 20-sided dice. And that's 13. Comes to 12 in total. Okay. Now, for those of you who are wondering, next week is the Ruins of Thunder Tree, by the way. That will be the last one that I do. It should be obvious, but yeah. Okay, so 12 for the cleric, which got better than anybody else. Now, DM has to roll. Mormisk the Wraith, when engaging in a battle, you are not going to find a section on your stat block that says initiative. What you need to do is you need to look at the ability scores, and it says strength, dex, dex. There's a big number 16, and then there's a +3. You're using the +3, okay, for Mormisk the Wraith in a fight, which means that the Wraith has got a pretty good chance of going first. And since it's essentially having to be a solo monster, you will need that. Otherwise, Mormisk isn't going to do very well. Okay, so I got a 17. That kind of means that all the players are probably going to last. 17 plus 3 is 20. Okay, once you've got all your numbers, take this here. You take all your numbers and you put the highest number at the top of your initiative and the lowest number at the bottom. So the Dungeon Master is going to be going at the top. The Rogue is going at the bottom. The next one under the Dungeon Master is going to be the Cleric, surprisingly. They've got a 12. And then after that is the Wizard, who got an 8. The Fighter's got a 7. And the Rogue got a 4. So you have your initiative, okay, on round 1. Let us assume there is no surprise, okay? Because the Wraith isn't necessarily going to attack straight away when you encounter it. Maybe you have a discussion with it, it doesn't go well. Okay, so at this point, we then start engaging in some attacks. So who gets to go first? Well, it's Mormisk the Wraith. I'm going to move this all the way up here, out of the way, so you can see what's going on. Move this over here, move that over there. There we go. And I need a drink of water because I'm getting dry. Okay. When you look at your Wraith, the first thing you should be seeing is you're going for the big thing that it does. It does essentially one thing, and it does it well. Okay? So whoever's closest, that's who you want to sort of target. And it has life drain. That's a +5. It has reach, so you have to get right up close, which is fine. And I usually use the average damage. Rather than rolling the damage, I use average damage. But you can roll. I would go with that. So 5, we're going to try to hit the fighter. This is Mormisk. There's life drain. And 5 to hit is the modifier. And we roll our 20-sided dice. I got a 6. Not very good. Didn't work very well, did it? I'm rolling really badly today. That's an 11. 11 to hit the armor class of the fighter. The armor class of the fighter is way too high. It's got an armor class of 17, okay, on the pre-generated sheets. I'm using the rogue, the wizard, the fighter who's the noble, and the cleric. These are the pre-gens from the standard book. So you're not going to hit your target. That means that Mormisk will have missed. What you decide to do after that, I don't think that you need to concern yourself of having Mormisk run away at this present time. He's got a lot of damage resistances and a lot of damage immunities. So you can get away with quite a bit before you start having Mormisk take off on you. Okay, he's not going to be following him out into daylight. So that's Mormisk. That was easy enough. Now, if you do damage, and we did hit and do damage, which we won't do, I normally take the average. The average is the number outside the brackets. That's the 16, okay? And then if you're going to roll and not use the average, then you would roll 3 8-sided dice and add 3. But we're not doing that. Instead, we're going to move down and do the cleric. As a cleric, and you're level 4, you have a feature that allows you to turn the undead, right? That there is there for a purpose, but you can only turn undead of a certain challenge rating effectively. Like it works a particular way. Now, because you're level 4, you should have access to turn undead. So that is what we're going to go for first. We're going to try to do that. If you turn on the back here, it'll say turn undead. When you use your turn undead, each undead that you can see or hear within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw, and the DC is a 13. Okay. If the creature fails the save, it is turned for 1 minute until it takes damage. Okay. Turning a creature must spend its turn trying to move as far away from you as possible. So I think that's the thing we want to focus on, is trying to use the turn undead. It's an action to do so, but it's worthwhile just trying to get it to get out of here, because it can run through a wall, and that would be the end of the fight. Actually, right now, I really want it to run away. That would be just awesome. That would be like, yes, because then the rest of the players don't even have to bother hitting it, and you're kind of done, right? So turn undead. Undead. And it's a DC 13 wisdom. So we're going to look at the wisdom saving throw for Mormisk on our character sheet, on our stat block, sorry. You'll notice that there is nothing that is listed as a saving throw for this creature. Okay, so all you're going to use is the wisdom modifier. So you see it says WIS in big letters. It says 14. You want the small number, which is the +2. That's what we're going to utilize. So it's a 2. I roll a 10-sided dice, and I add that to see if I'm able to resist being turned. Now, I think if at level 4, you will find that your turning ability has actually gone up. You're level 4, so you'll be a 14. Sorry about that. 13 actually refers to a level 2. But at level 4, you will have a DC. Turning undead increases by 1, so it's actually a 14. So it's a bit harder. A bit harder to avoid resisting it. Okay, I've got a 1. I'm so glad. So, failed the save. That there is a 2 plus a 1 on the dice. That is an absolute, you bolstered up Mormisk. So that now means that Mormisk would have to flee. Okay. Now, when do you flee? A turn creature must spend its turn trying to move as far away from you as it can. It can't willingly move to a space within 30 feet of you. It can't take reactions for its action. It only uses the dash action. or tries to escape from an effect that prevents it from moving. So basically, as long as the rest of the characters, we go through and, oh, here we go again. I'm going to report this time. Report is spam. Okay, just bear with me while I do this. I'm going to report all of them. If I report enough of it, maybe it'll leave me alone. And this one here, report unwanted, and one more, sorry about that, report unwanted. Okay, I think I've got that under control now. Yeah, well, this is the whole point of using turning abilities, right? The challenge rating of Mormisk is probably too high to destroy it, but turning it, yeah, it's definitely, like, it's plausible, because I'm not counting them as being level 5, because you get destroy undead at level 5. That's different, right? But turning the undead, that's completely within the scope of that character, and it's done it effectively. So as long as your cleric says, I've successfully turned the creature, I can see it's about to flee, don't attack it, that's what you should be saying, then the rest of the people, they just go through their turn and do nothing. They can take the dodge action already in action to do something if the wraith attacks. Like, you could even have your player characters decide to make an opportunity attack or move into position to make an opportunity attack when the wraith moves away. Like, you could stipulate that's your condition for using a ready action. That means, and we could do that, so in fact we will do that, shall we? Because it would defeat the turn the undead, but I'll do it two ways. We'll do it with it just so you just don't do anything, you just take the dodge action. We get to the top, DM has his turn, and Mormisk goes through the walls and disappears. And now Mormisk might come back, but you've dealt with that situation fairly effectively. Like, the players have done a great job. We've only got to one player and the cleric's done it. That's why you have a cleric in the first place. Hello Amber, how are you? Thank you for the tutorials. You're welcome, Amber. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Now, we could turn this around and say, what happens if +1 at Amber? Yep. I'm glad it's been helpful. Derry. Is it Derry? Derry. If it's Derry, if I got your name wrong, let me know. So let's change that and say, okay, instead of Mormisk just leaving because it's been turned, let's go with a different approach. Let's go with the wizard, the fighter, and the rogue. They are going to ready an action to attack the wraith when it flees. Okay? Or just before it goes through the wall, or something like that. You can stipulate it however you like. Okay? Somebody said, please demonstrate a ready action. Let's do that. So yeah, but it will defeat the. It will counter the turn undead if they hit. If they don't hit, it will do nothing. But if the wraith takes damage, then yeah. Okay, so we have one wizard. We can use that and unload with a fairly powerful spell. We can move our rogue is in position up close. Our fighter is up in position, and we work our way through. And I will show you what happens to our wraith as it flees. Yep. Now, you're not going to get advantage on that attack or anything like that, but what you do get is you get the benefits of being able to make an attack, and you don't really, you have that choice. You have that choice. So, if you're wanting to kill a thing, that was me, thank you. What's this? Is it Givisorices? Oh, God. It's gone 2 a.m. here in the UK. Oh, my gosh. Glad to catch the stream. Well, I'm amazed that you showed up if you're in the UK. I really am. Okay, so let's do this anyway. Since I said I would do it, let's do the wizard. let's pick a fairly brutal spell that we could unleash on our target. And let's pick something that is probably going to be doing something. Let's use Magic Missile. I know we could use Burning Hands, and potentially it kind of makes sense. It would probably do more damage. My only thought around that is like, if you did have your character do a knowledge check, you may discover that, hang on, fire damage it's resistant to, and it's probably not going to do as much as you think. So we're not going to do that, right? And a lot of undead tend to be resistant to fire damage. I think at this point, I think your characters probably know this sort of thing. So Magic Missile. It's force damage. There's no attack roll. It is one of the few spells that do damage that require no attack roll. You do not need to do a saving throw. It just works. So what we need to do is grab a 4-sided dice. You get 3 darts. The normal process for using Magic Missile and figuring out your damage is that you would roll 1 4-sided dice, add +1 to that dice, and then multiply that by 3 for each of the 3 darts. It's all right. I'm just going to call you Jev, and you'll tell me if that's offensive or not. Jev's Orias. Okay. So here we go. So I rolled a 3. So we take 3, add 1. Each dart comes to 4. Take the 4, because there are 3 darts, multiply that by 3, comes to 12. And it's not resistant to that. That means it takes 12 damage from that blow. So have I got a dice here that I can use to indicate that? Yes, I do. I'll use these dice here, and we'll stack it up so you can see what's going on. So, so we've done 6 damage and another 6 damage. That comes to 12. Okay, that's the first attack from the wizard as it flees. Now, you don't have to wait for it to flee. You could just say, I'm going to attack it anyway. Do you know what I mean? This is essentially what we're doing. Let's go with the fighter. Now, normally the wraith does not actually attack flee until its turn. So you could choose to take your turn straight away and just make those attacks anyway, or you could wait till round 2 and then do it. Because on my turn, when the wraith leaves, then you trigger it. That means you get all 4 characters getting to take a turn, not just the wizard, the fighter, and the rogue, but also the cleric. It's probably the more sensible thing to do is to wait until the second round when the wraith leaves. Hello, Eric. How are you doing? Is it true that Wave Echo Cave has the most delicious lichen this side of Amin? Yes, it does. You're right. It's very, very tasty. I'm impossible. So yeah, so if your characters decide to leave it till round 2 when the wraith actually takes off, then this is a good time to do it, right? Because that means you get all 3 of you being able to take a turn. So not only will the wizard have done their magic missile, it means that you can also have your cleric take a turn as it flees. I think that's what I was trying to communicate. I just didn't make it clear enough. Sorry about that. Let's get rid of you. That's one wizard done. We'll go back to the cleric because I skipped that since I'm fluffing things around a bit. This is the problem with doing things live. Sometimes I haven't done this for a while, so I'm a little bit out of practice, aren't I? Let's pick a spell or an action that we think is going to be suitable for this. I think casting a spell is the way to go. We definitely don't want to cast Cure Wounds on it. We're not going to get close enough to be able to do that anyway. We can certainly cast Sacred Flame on it. And I think probably the thing that we will do is we will give our characters advantage, like casting Bless. As soon as the wraith takes off, we cast Bless. You know what that means? Everybody gets to roll a 4-sided dice with their 20-sided dice to make attacks. They also get to roll 4-sided dice when making a saving throw, if I remember right. So that's actually quite good. You like to grapple? Of course you do. Okay, so cleric casts Bless, wizard casts Magic Missile. The fighter now gets to make an attack, And we will ditch the cleric. And we'll go to our fighter, who has a great axe. Like, that's the big 12-sided dice when you're rolling for damage. We're going to get that ready, baby. Okay. And we're going to use a 20-sided dice and a D4, because they're now blessed. And it's a great axe attack. Great. Axe. Okay. On here, it's a +5, which it should be at level 4. It should have gone up by now. It should be a, the attack bonus should be a +6. Yep. Because we went up, we got a proficiency bonus. Bonuses have increased, I believe. So, yes, that's right. Okay, roll that. Okay, so good thing we had it. So we get a 7 on the 20-sided dice, and we get a 3 on the 4-sided dice. We add that all up, that comes to 16. We compare that number, since we're in melee with it, and we're taking an opportunity attack as a reaction. The armor class of the Wraith is actually only a 13. It's nice and easy to hit. Voila, you smacked it. Hello, Fred. No, Fred, is that Fred Gnomes? Hello, Fred. How's it going? Just popping in to keep up. Yeah, I'm trying to keep up the good work. Let's hopefully this all works. Okay, so 16 will hit, and that means we get to make a great axe attack. That is the 12-sided dice. Okay, and we're going to be adding a 3 to that for our damage. 3 to whatever we roll on here. I got a 10, which is pretty good. 10 and 3, it's 13. Now, this is not necessarily going to be a magic axe, and unfortunately the Wraith has a damage resistance. Okay, it actually states in the stat block for the Wraith for Mormisk that it has got damage resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. And this is a slashing weapon, and you don't have a silvered weapon, and you don't have a magic weapon. So it's going to do less damage than normal. So we take the 13 and we divide it in half, because you take half the damage. Okay, now half of 13 is actually going to be 6 damage. Now you're thinking, oh, Fred, it's supposed to be 6.5. We have to round down. In this case, we have to round down. So we take another 6-sided dice. That's more damage that it's taken. Okay, it's not as much as we would have hoped, but it's done pretty well. It's not too bad. All right, so let's get rid of the fighter. And let's move on to our rogue. Now our rogue gets to use their sneak attack because there is somebody within 5 feet and they don't have disadvantage. And so of course we're going to be using our short sword attack, because there you should have had your short sword out the first time around anyway. All right, short sword. That was part of what you did. You set up your action by making sure you drew your short sword and readied your action. Okay, so in this case, I'm pretty sure that our modifiers will have changed at level 4. Attack bonus, short sword increases to 1. Yep, so that's what we will do. So instead of it being a 5, it's a 6. And we roll. Now remember, we have blessed, the cleric has blessed the wizard and the rogue and the fighter. So they are going to get to use that D4, okay? And as long as the cleric stays out of harm's way, we're all good. All right, so I rolled. I'm going to add 6 to 14, and on the 4-sided dice, we got a 3. Okay, so that is 6 and 14 is 20, and 20, so that's 23. 23 is more than enough to hit the armor class of 13 on Mormisk the Wraith. So now we're going to roll for some damage. Now the damage is different. Remember, you get a 6-sided dice for the short sword. You normally would get a +3, but that's going to change because if we're level 4, it's going to be a bit higher than that, okay? So our modifiers now are 4 because we're level 4, or we should be level 4. But also too, sneak attack works differently. So you get 2d6 damage with your sneak attack feature instead of 1 at level 3. Yep. So instead of getting sneak attack and it's a 1 6-sided dice, we're going to use 2, because you'll notice with the sneak attack that's what it stipulates is okay. So we get that sneak attack and it's a +1, but we're going to increase that. Now we get to use that. We don't have advantage. Okay, the bless doesn't count as advantage, but what it does count as is we've got the fighter within 5 feet who is an enemy of or an ally to the rogue or an enemy of Mormisk the Wraith. Either one is going to work. So that means we get to take another 6-sided dice. We get 2 for the sneak attack instead. Right? And we're going to roll those all together. And this is going to hurt a lot. So that is 6, and I got a 6, and I got a 4. So that comes out at a grand total of 6, 4, it's 20. Now remember, this may well be not a magical weapon, and a rogue is not really able to make their weapon magical or their attacks magical. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to halve it like we did it before, because it's a slashing piercing weapon and Mormisk the Wraith has resistance to that, so we have to halve that. Okay. The GM radiator. Yeah, I just ran some of the Wave Echo Cave. Glad to see you again. Yeah, back every week from now. I've finished my holiday. So that means we're going to take 10 damage on Mormisk. So that's another 6, and we'll get another dice to represent another 4. And we have finished the rogue, and now it's back to the Dungeon Master. Now the Dungeon Master's Wraith, when they get to their turn, no, it's already fled, but all those attacks will have negated the fleeing. So now we can re-engage the Wraith if we wanted to on round 3. But would we do that? Okay, given that we've just been smacked by everybody under the sun, would we worry about doing that? Because Mormisk the Wraith has taken 6. Let's add that all up. Probably taken enough damage to warrant just bugging out. So that's 6 plus another 6, another 6, another 6, and 4. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 28. Total of 28 damage. Mormisk the Wraith has 45 hit points. I would have the Wraith bug take off. Okay, it's provoked that attack of opportunity. It's tried to flee. Okay, I would not return to have it return. It gets attacked. It doesn't get stopped. It just flees. So when we get to round 3, the Wraith has gone through the wall, and hooray! The player characters have defeated Mormisk the Wraith. Simple as that. Piece of cake. Yeah? All right. I'm sorry if I've got it a little bit mixed up in places and I changed things around and I did a couple of versions of this battle. But I think that's probably how it would play out given that situation. And more than likely you'll find that your cleric will be relatively successful with trying to turn the undead at level 4. Like, I found that to be the case as a general rule. Let me just get rid of this. Okay. Now, are there any other questions before I take off? Because I think I will throw in the towel today and close up this session. As I said, I will be going over the last lesson for Lost Mine of Phandelver. Will be the Ruins of Thunder Tree. Yes, I will be making some significant changes to the Ruins of Thunder Tree. I will show you how to run it as is, and then I will suggest some changes for that adventure to allow you to make it a main event. Like, it would be the continuing adventure for that. That is my intention with the next one. Now, of course, after next week's Ruins of Thunder Tree, same day and time, I will continue the cycle and we'll run right back through all of this again. Hopefully by then I have a 6K camera pointing at the desk, and have a much faster computer, because the computer will hopefully have arrived by then and been installed. But we'll see how that goes. So this is your opportunity to ask any questions you would like. I'm going to close up on the poll, like so. I've given you one little demonstration and as much advice as I can offer on that section based on the questions. that I thought you would ask, and the questions that have been asked. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. Okay. I'll catch everybody tomorrow who show up for the Dungeon Master preparation classes. Okay, like this needs to go into, where are we? Nope. Yep. Let's go here. Last drink of water. Okay, so I just want to thank all of the patrons on Patreon. As I said, all of this stuff you'll find on Patreon. The physical notes for all of this stuff is going to be there, and you'll find all of the original video tutorials are there as well. They're not the upgraded one that I'm currently running, but the original ones are actually up there on Patreon. And thank you for everybody on Patreon. Thank you for everybody who's been following my streams and supporting me by watching my stuff. And look, it can only get better from here. Trust me, it can only get better from here. I'm sure that you'll find things will be much easier as time goes by, because we're also looking at a Phandelver campaign being released in the future. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee or early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Shana, thank you. I'm a bit rusty, so the demonstration wasn't quite what I was hoping to do, but that's all right. We'll get back into the swing of it.